Hi, and welcome to episode 16 of Soft Signal. If you watched us before, thank you for tuning in again. But if this is your first time, welcome to the channel. We are cricket fans who chat primarily about Indian cricket every week. Uh, my name is Varun, and I'm joined by my co host Aditya. So if you like what you see, please click the subscribe button, and we'll be coming up with videos with this every week. So, with that said, let's get this episode up and running. We are 1 week away from finally from the England versus India series. It feels like forever. Actually, not even 1 week. It's 4 days now, so down to less than a week. Are you excited? It's finally here.
Yeah, I'm excited it's finally here because the World Test Championship actually happened a month and a half ago.
Yeah,
And while that was happening, it did feel as if the gap between that match and the India versus England series was going to be this long.
yeah,
But uh, but finally, it's here, and I think it's going to be one of the best Test series of recent times, as always. When you pit two really strong sides against each other, you're probably in for some mouth-watering cricket. So super
yeah,
excited.
for sure. And England series are just fun to watch always. I think it's convenient timings to an extent, and also it's just it is still, at least in our minds, a challenge. So and we've not done well in our past 2 or 3 tours, so it'll be good to get some redemption this time. And just speaking about that, just a quick segue that if you want to check out our reviews of previous tours that we India have done to England, you can check out some of our previous videos where we've covered that. But let's focus primarily on this one for this episode. And India have been in England. They haven't played any warm ups. They haven't really done anything, but they've still managed to have injuries with Shubman Gill, Washington Sundar, and Avesh Khan having to go back to India and replaced by Prithvi Shaw and Surya Kumar Yadav. So, were you expecting that? I mean, not the injuries. You couldn't be predicting that, but what about the replacements?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting these replacements. It's a bit surprising.
Hmm.
Everybody knows Prithvi Shaw is talented, but is he really so good in overseas conditions? If we were to look at what he did in in New Zealand and Australia, the answer to
Yeah.
that is no. If you look at his technique, then also the answer seems to be no. So unless Prithvi Shaw has done something really drastic to improve his technique in the off season or behind the curtains, as they say, then unless that's happened, it's a real surprise that he's on this series. And Surya Kumar Yadav, superb white ball player. He's done it in the IPL. He's shown that he belongs at the international stage on the for white ball cricket. I'm a little surprised he's been called up for the Test series, and even more so because it's not a like to like replacement. Okay, Prithvi Shaw is an opener. Shubman Gill is an opener who's been replaced. So like to like. But the other injury was Washington Sundar and Avesh Khan. How is that being
Yeah.
replaced? How are those guys being replaced by Surya Kumar? So that's a little bit surprising. That being said, I am not certain Surya Kumar will actually get a chance to play one of the test matches unless there are injuries, more injuries.
Yeah.
I think it's just more an opportunity to groom him for the future, in even for test match cricket.
Yeah, I think there's also a bit of recency bias that's crept in, that he's been in the limelight, so called, for the past few months, and he's done really well on the tour of Sri Lanka. So maybe they thought he has a recent match practice as well. So let's just get him in. But yeah, I don't see him playing. I think it's going to be he's like you said, just there for the experience, and he's already 31 years old, I think. So maybe I mean I don't know. It seems like a bit of a weird selection, but we'll see how that play. Maybe he'll prove us all wrong and might play good innings or two if he gets a chance to play. But Prithvi Shaw, I agree. I'm just it's having nightmares of thinking of how he'd play in England against Anderson and Broad. He's going to be eaten alive. And I feel bad for the backup openers. I feel bad for Easwaran, who's been taken as, like, the moment Gill got injured, there was talk of getting Prithvi Shaw, Padikkal, and he must have been like, "What do I? I'm right here." But we'll see how they uh, deal with that. What do you think is our ideal 11, at least for the first test?
Yeah, this is always a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Uh, because we tend to be spoiled for choice. Now, of course, the ideal 11 depends completely on the conditions,
yeah,
and also on recent form, you would think. Uh, I think the openers. So Rohit Sharma is obviously going to be there, right? He's the main opener. Um, then for the second opener, there's a toss up between Mayank Agarwal and KL Rahul. And I say KL Rahul only because he scored 100 recently. So
yeah.
of course, he scored it batting in the middle order in the warm up game, but it's still 100. And KL Rahul has opened for India in Test matches in the
And
past.
done really well also.
Yeah, on the last tour to England, he actually got 100 as well. He
Yeah,
got a 150 odd in the last Test match. So it could be a toss up between Mayank and KL, but I think Mayank will get the nod simply because he was the more recent opener. Um, at number three, Pujara. Of course, it has to be Pujara. There's no one else who's going to occupy that slot. Kohli at four, Rahane at five. So that's a pretty familiar middle order, or the engine room as they like to call it.
yeah.
Rishabh Pant slots in at six, also as the wicket keeper. Um, a much improved version of Rishabh Pant, both in terms of batting and in terms of keeping, as
And
compared
in
to the
terms of
previous tour,
sledging.
and in terms of sledging as well, as compared to the previous tour. So, I think Rishabh Pant. This is a really good opportunity for Rishabh Pant to stamp his position as India's premier wicketkeeper, even in Test matches, in Test match cricket. Um, at number seven, and this is where it gets tricky now, right? Because as always, the problem with India's bowlers is that not all of them bat, and but none of the fast bowlers bat. It's not even a question of all of them, but
And they
none of
can't even, this, like, they can't even hold a bat. Let's not even.
exactly. There is no dual contribution. It's just bowling and absolutely nothing else in terms of batting. So what I think is, and this is my opinion, um, India needs a strong lower middle order,
Yeah.
right? Historically, when you look at it, that's where we've actually lost some matches because the opposition lower middle order outscores us and adds some very useful runs on the board. So I would start off by picking um, Jadeja at seven. Okay, so Jadeja is going to be my premier all rounder. At number eight, I'm going to go with Shardul Thakur.
Mhm.
Now, this is a big call, right? Because
So no
what I'm
Ashwin.
saying is that there's no Ashwin,
Yeah.
right? The problem with having Jadeja and Ashwin is that do you really need two spinners? Um, okay, Ashwin actually bowled well in one of the county games, right? He played a couple of county games for one of the counties in the UK, and
Yeah.
he picked up 6 wickets in an innings. So it's going to be a hard call, but I just think um, the role that Ashwin will play for India um, in overseas Test matches, I think Jadeja will do as well. So I would have Jadeja at seven and Shardul Thakur at eight. So that at least gives me some batting till number eight because Shardul Thakur can bat.
I mean, we saw it in the last test in Australia. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, Also, one other thing I've noticed about Shardul Thakur is that he's able to swing the ball. And I've been saying this ever since the World Test Championship that our bowlers are good, but they're not swing bowlers. And I think in English conditions, you need swing bowlers. The only test match we won on the last series was when Hardik Pandya swung the ball
Yeah.
and got us 5 wickets. So Shardul Thakur can swing the ball. He's more of a swing bowler. So I'd have him at number eight. And then I would have Shami, Ishant, and Bumrah at 9, 10, 11. So that would be my ideal starting 11. And yeah, dropping Ashwin is really a tough call. But I think in terms of the combination of the team,
Yeah,
at least for the first test match, this is the best combination in my mind.
yeah. I think they will. I pretty much agree with you. I think they'll go with Rahul as the opener. For some reason, Agarwal has just fallen out of favor in the past few months. So and also Rahul, like you said, has played in England before, so maybe they'll just give him a go as opener. It's tricky with Jadeja, Ashwin, the whole thing, because according to me, Jadeja is our most valuable Test player right now. Like even more than Kohli and anyone else, because of the all-rounder aspect. Like they can just play him as a batsman as well. It's considering what they have after. He's so much better of a batsman than any of our tailenders. I mean, he's better than Ashwin also, but not so much. But I think he's the most valuable player. So I think he has to be in the 11. And then yeah, it's again like if it depends if we're going for batting or like there's one school of thought that might say that we can have two spinners playing, but both of them don't have to bowl. They're just there to for the batting, but then you might as well play an extra batsman then. So it's difficult. I think they might just go with two spinners first, and then have the three bowlers and see what how it goes. Um, I'm wondering if they'll also rotate the fast bowlers around because they have Shami, Ishant, Shardul, Bumrah, and Siraj. It's a long five-match series. We know Bumrah has. I don't think he's played a five-match series in a row. He played four tests in Australia, I think, that first 2018 series. But after that, he's had issues with fitness. So maybe they'll rest him. I don't know how that will work.
Yeah, I think for sure they have to rotate the fast bowlers. It's really hard on the guys to play 5 consecutive test matches. It's really hard. So
Yeah,
at some point, expect the bowling combinations to change. I think Siraj will get a game.
yeah,
Um, Also, the other thing about Siraj is that he too can swing the ball a bit more than the others. So I think he might not play the first test match. Then again, it depends, right? We never know what's going on in the mind of the team management. I don't think he will play the first test match, but I'm pretty sure that the bowlers will be rotated in the following test matches. So I think maybe in the second test match, don't be surprised if you see Ishant sitting out and Siraj playing, and then in the third test match, maybe Bumrah sitting out
yeah,
and Ishant coming back, and I think they will rotate the bowlers like that. Um, but you're right. I do think that the key member of this team, um, in terms of his all-round capability, is Ravindra Jadeja. I think he's just by virtue of being the only genuine all-rounder, he's really bringing in so much of balance, right, to this
yeah,
team at number 7. Um, but of course, then again, that being said, it is important to have a number 8 who can still bat because, in all likelihood, England's number 8 is going to be Sam Curran. Their number
yeah.
9 is going to be Stuart Broad,
They
and
can all bat. I think
they can
even
all bat.
yeah.
Even
Apart
Anderson
from against India, Anderson can bat.
against India, Anderson can bat, and actually, when you think of it, Anderson is good enough to hang around and get 10 or 12 runs. You can't even say that about India's 9, 10, and 11, right? So I think Shardul Thakur, if he plays, is going to have an important role to play as a lower order batter, as well as the fourth seamer. And I think in English conditions, you cannot discount the role of a fourth seamer. Simply because there's still the fourth seamer is also a wicket taking option in those conditions. It's going to be Jadeja who will play the holding role. So yeah, so I think Jadeja and Shardul Thakur for me, their contributions at number 7 and 8 are going to go a long way towards you know influencing the scoreline of this series. And as always, India's strength still is its bowling, which is so surprising, right? The batting, for all that it is, I think it still looks frail.
Yeah,
I think it still looks frail. I somehow don't see Rahane. Okay, he's the vice captain. He's there in the team. He's number 5. Virat Kohli has said time and again that he's extremely important to the team. But Rahane's performances in terms of runs scored are simply not up to the mark.
Yeah.
And it's, to be honest, it is India's middle order, apart from Kohli, does look a little weak.
Yeah, even Pujara, I think they're all under some kind of scrutiny. This, and they're not getting younger. They're all in their mid 30s, 33 now. So, like Kohli will still survive and be there for till whenever he decides to retire. But I think Pujara and Rahane, it's not a win for them to be in the team unless they start performing. So we have players in the wings. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can step up this series. And don't forget, just one more point, we also have Umesh Yadav as a fast bowler, so who actually played well in the warm-up. He got, I think, 3 wickets in the second innings. So 6 bowlers to choose from, which is unprecedented, right? And all good bowlers. So it's exciting. It's also comforting to know that there's so many options
Yeah.
available.
Yeah.
But let's move on to England, who have, and let's address the first big talking point. No Ben Stokes. He's decided to take a break from cricket for mental health reasons. He's been through a lot in the past 2 3 years. I think there was that whole incident at the nightclub, then the high of the World Cup and the Ashes, and then of course I think his father passed away last year, unfortunately. So understandable, and of course it's good to see people taking time out for themselves when they need to. I don't think this would have been the norm a few years ago. So I think that's a just to address that bit, that's I think a commendable step for sure.
Yeah, it's really commendable. I think I think it's just it's the fatigue of living through these COVID bubbles
Yeah,
that international sports athletes find difficult to do, and understandably so. You're living in isolation for so many days of a year
yeah,
in hotel rooms. It's not like you're living in your own place
yeah,
while you're isolated. You're living in hotel rooms, so it's not very comfortable. And like you said, he's had personal tragedy in the last year. He's battling with a finger injury at the moment. um, and the way Ben Stokes is that he likes to give it his all. So when you are giving your all continuously,
yeah,
you do reach a point where you just cannot do it anymore. And I think if he deserves a break for mental health issues, kudos to him. Really,
yeah,
I think this is a problem that affects all international athletes, and it's very encouraging to see people stand up for it and acknowledge it, and
yeah,
not view it as a sign of weakness. Also, the ECB has come out in full support of him, so good on them for doing that as well. And I really hope Ben Stokes can recover soon and come back to entertain all his fans with his great bowling and very good batting and excellent fielding as well. I mean,
yeah,
he's a true all rounder in the sense of the word.
for sure. And just it's actually England cricket, for what you have to give credit. I think they've been great at handling this for a long time, because if you remember, even Trescothick way back in 2006, when no one was even acknowledging these things in sport, they acknowledged that and let him leave, and toes in the middle, because he was going through similar issues. So kudos to English cricket for that. But how does that affect England's squad, England's playing 11 now? Because that's a, like, if we thought Ravindra Jadeja was valuable to India, Ben Stokes is like almost double that for England. So how do you see that affecting them? And do you, like you mentioned Sam Curran at 8, maybe he'll now be pushed up the batting order?
Yeah, it's a big loss, of course, for England. Let's make no mistake about that. Ben Stokes is a true all rounder because he bats, he bowls, and he fields, and he fields in different positions. So he's
Yeah,
actually a complete all rounder. So not having him is a loss to England for sure. They've replaced him with Craig Overton, who's
yeah,
also an all rounder, but let's face it, he's not going to be able to fill in Ben Stokes' shoes immediately. That being said, I think, of course, the advantage of with England is that they're playing in home conditions, so they have players who are used to those conditions, and some of them will need to step up. So if you were to go down through their entire lineup, I would see. At least for the first test match, they go in with Rory Burns and Dom Sibley as their regular openers. I know Hasib Hamid is in the wings. He scored a century in the warm-up game, but I think for the first test match at least, they will go with Burns and Sibley. They'll have Zach Crawley at 3, Joe Root at 4, who's of course the captain and their best batsman by far. At number 5, Ollie Pope, who always kind of threatens to impress but never
Yeah.
does. Um, at number 6, they'll have Butler at number 6. At number 7, I think Sam Curran, who usually bats at 8, will need to bat at 7, and he's totally capable of doing so as well. At 8, Broad. At 9, Wood. 10, Anderson, and Jack Leach at 11. So I know that usually England teams against India in England don't go with spinners too often.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a really quality spinner like Graham Swan. But I just think that for the sake of variety, for the sake of control, and just to have another option to fall back on, I think England should go in for a spinner,
Yeah.
the lone spinner in the first Test match. And Jack Leach, the slow left-arm spinner, can do the job, can do the holding job, and offer some variation and some respite for the fast bowlers as well. So that would be my England ideal 11. You could argue why not Best instead of Leach, but I think the last, sorry, um, I think Dom Best is kind of suffering from confidence issues. Is what is coming out of England's camp. So maybe they're still developing him. But until then, Jack Leach is the lead spinner for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up that last bit because I was just thinking maybe they'll play Best instead of Leach and bat Best as 8 because their batting does look I think Best is a much better batsman and like with Butler at 6, it's not Butler's a great white ball batsman. I don't think he's that great at that red ball cricket, so it's a bit brittle as well. Like their opener, if we I think both batting lineups are brittle this series, which so it'll be interesting to see which set of bowlers can outshine the other because, like like you said, Pope doesn't really it flatters to deceive. We have people like Crawley, Burns, Sibley, who are okay. They're not great batsmen. So yeah, it'll be maybe they might play Best to shore up their batting a bit. But yeah, Sam Curran, he's just India's.
Nemesis.
India's nemesis. Maybe this series. I hope we find a solution against him because it was just like we had no solution against him last time. Then yeah, they have a few players like Dan Lawrence, Hamid, who you said, Ollie Robinson as well. I think he's back from his ban or whatever that was. The break that they gave made him take for those tweets that he put out. And of course, England have an advantage that the series is in England. So I'm not sure about the exact COVID rules, but I think they should be able to replace a player if they want to. They might not be able to replace them immediately, but I think they should be able to replace. So that first 11 looks good. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, which bowling lineup performs better. What do you think? Let's move on to the next segment, and this is the last segment of the show, which we're just trying to have a bit of fun. Glenn McGrath style predictions, maybe, or do you want to be more conservative in the series prediction?
Yeah, I think Glenn McGrath's prediction style is a bit too extroverted, if I may call it so.
Yeah.
And I don't think any team is so strong today that they can beat the others 5-0. Anyways, predictions. I think England start off as favourites simply because it is in England, and their players and bowlers are more suited to English conditions than India. It'll for sure be a close series. So when I say close series, I mean that it won't be the way England was trounced by India in January. It won't be like that. It'll be much closer. India is a stronger opposition in England than England is in India.
Yes.
So Uh, it's a tough one to predict. Um, I think I think the time has come though for India to win in England.
Yeah.
Um, I think, given the fact that England's batting is extremely brittle to begin with, and to add to that, there's no Stokes. I think India, if they bat decently well, if they are able to score 300 each time they bat, or 350 each time they bat, um, I think they will win the series 2-1. But England still start as favourites because the, the caveat that I put out there of India scoring 350 each time they bat is a big if.
Yeah.
I think if that happens, India wins 2-1. Uh, if wins 2-1, maybe even wins 3-1. Uh, but if they don't do that, then
Yeah.
I think England wins the series. So it's a tough one to predict. It's really a tough one to call. But I would say that this is India's best opportunity simply because England is a weak batting team and it's even further weakened because of Ben Stokes' absence.
Yeah. But I know we didn't do that in Australia, but where we lost the test. But I think we need to start off well for sure, because I think we've seen in England, if we go down early, it's difficult to come back and win. But I am going for a optimistic 2-1 India win as well. I don't think it'll be 3-1. I think there'll be a couple of draws. There's always rain in England also, so it is. If we can also get the tail out and work on that issue that we have now for years, I think that's important, because we've got ourselves into positions where we've run through the top and middle order before and then just got stuck at the tail. This time there's no Stokes, so, and even more brittle batting. But yeah, going for 2-1 India. Um, and I also wanted to think of top run scorer and top wicket taker from India for this series. So I'll start. My top run scorer is going to be a bit left field, but I think it's going to be Rohit Sharma for India. I'm hoping it is him. That just because I think he's never played a test in England, and this might be like a kind of a best of the worst prediction, because I don't think Pujara or Rahane are going to have great series. So I mean, it's between Kohli and Rohit actually, and I think, and the other batsmen I think will be rotated throughout the series, like Agarwal, Rahul, Vihari. So they won't play all 5 tests. So I think my top scorer is going to be Rohit Sharma for the series, and top wicket taker, I don't honestly, I don't know. I'm going to say Bumrah just because he's our best bowler, but and he's not played too much in England before. So both players I'm selecting are guys who haven't really played much in England before. Well, Rohit has not played at all, but Bumrah has also played limited. What about you?
Yeah, this is a tough question. Um, I think I think I'll probably work backwards with a rule of elimination. So I don't see Pujara and Rahane score too many runs.
Yeah,
Pujara might occupy the crease for a long time, but I don't think he'd score too many runs. I think Virat Kohli is probably in a zone where he's not as prolific as he was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know why that is,
yeah,
but I just feel that he is now a little vulnerable. Meaning, even if he wants, like, even if he's got a strong mindset to actually not get out, I feel that he is a little more vulnerable than what he was 2 or 3 years ago. And this sounds absolutely ridiculous, right? But
yeah,
there seems to be no science behind what I'm saying, but you just get that feeling.
yeah,
Um, and then I don't know what's the second opener. So as you said, it could be Mayank, KL. Who knows? Not all. Both of them might not even play all the matches. So
yeah.
just simply by virtue of that, they won't get the opportunity to score the most runs. So that comes down to
Rohit and
Rohit
Pant.
Sharma and Rishabh Pant.
Yeah,
Right now, uh, I think I think Rohit Sharma has his work cut out against England's new ball bowlers, especially Jimmy
sure,
Anderson.
sure. Yes,
Right, so that's going to be tough for him. Rishabh Pant, on the other hand, right, he's just building building on all the strengths and accolades that he's collected over the past year or two. He's come to England the second time. So this is the second time after scoring 100 in the previous series. He did well in Australia. He's riding on a huge strength or huge wave of confidence. So I think even though he's batting at number 6, Rishabh Pant will probably be India's top scorer this series. And in terms of the wicket takers, uh, it's a difficult one. Uh, I don't see Bumrah being the highest wicket taker, at least personally, because I think oppositions have seemed to have found a way against Bumrah in the last, ever since he came back from injury. They just seem to know how to play him better. Um, Ishan Sharma will always be the consistent bowler, the workhorse. Might not take a truckload of wickets though, which makes me put my money on Shami, because I
Yeah.
think he's super skillful and he's got the tools to get batsmen out, even though he's not a swing bowler. So I think Shami for me will be India's highest wicket taker on this tour.
Okay, so we'll revisit this in 6 weeks and see if either of us or neither of us were right.
Yes,
It'll be fun
exactly.
to check back on it. Uh, so I think we can wrap up here. We've covered quite a bit. It's really exciting to finally have the series, like I said at the start of the episode. Something to look forward to over the next few weeks, for sure. And yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be in the middle of the first test, so we'll be back to review or speak about that. Let's see how it goes. But thanks everyone for listening to this episode, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, and hopefully by then that test match would have progressed. And I hope there's no rain.
Yeah.
I sincerely hope there's no rain, but we'll see next week.